WFYI podcast brought to you by Bloomington, Indiana, an American college town offering food and drink, college sports, outdoor activities, live music, cool art, and good times daily. Everyone is welcome in Bloomington. More information at visitbloomington.com.
This is WFYI News Now. It's March 27th, and I'm Darian Benson. On today's show, potential evidence of lead poisoning found in bones, catching up on an effort at Purdue to research artificial intelligence, and hundreds of thousands of people experience sudden cardiac arrest every year in the U.S., including children.
He lost all speech. He couldn't even sit up anymore. It was like his body went back to being like a baby.
Those stories coming up, but first, attacks between some of the Republican candidates for governor sharpened last night during the primary's first televised debate. Mike Braun, Brad Chambers, Suzanne Crouch, and Eric Daudelin answered a range of questions, from immigration to in vitro fertilization to gas taxes. And while many of their answers were largely the same, they took some shots where they could. Many of the attacks were directed at Mike Braun, considered the frontrunner. Daudelin hit him on immigration reform.
And I'll point to Senator Mike Braun, who goes down to the border and cuts a TV commercial, tells us that he's bringing solutions to the problem, and just a few short days later then says, oh, well, let's not have solutions because of politics.
Braun attacked Daudelin, and in particular Brad Chambers, for ways they each led the Indiana Economic Development Corporation.
This guy over here has been with his fat cat buddies over the time he spent there, zeroing in on a couple projects.
Economic development was a point of contention. When Chambers faced criticism for his leadership as state commerce secretary, he parried those attacks back at Braun.
We don't want to take Senator Braun's advice on this. He's the one that said in 2018, we want to bring jobs back from China. We want to bring jobs overseas. And then he went and vetoed and didn't support the CHIPS Act. I brought 8 high-wage companies based on the CHIPS Act.
Crouch largely didn't engage in the attacks, nor was she the target of much. But she did reserve a little criticism for her opponents over a question of small towns and their infrastructure issues. Crouch argued she was focused on helping them.
It seems like my opponents are more interested in their next job.
Curtis Hill and Jamie Rittenauer, who are also on the primary ballot, were excluded from the debate. When it comes to spotting lead poisoning, blood tests might not be enough. As Indiana Public Broadcasting's Rebecca Thiel reports, tests on children at an Indianapolis school show evidence of long-term damage from lead could be hiding in kids' bones.
Last month, kindergartners and first graders at the Genius School were tested for lead as part of a collaborative project between the Indianapolis NAACP, Purdue University, and the Marion County Public Health Department. While none of them had blood lead levels high enough to trigger the state to take action, they did have high levels in their bones. Purdue Assistant Professor Aaron Specht says lead only stays in the blood for a few weeks, but it can build up in the bones and remain there for years.
So 90% is in the bone and about 1% is in the blood. So when you do a blood test, you're not actually getting that total body dose of what someone's been impacted with.
The Indianapolis NAACP says the bone test results allow the Genius School to follow up with neurological testing and develop specialized lesson plans for kids affected by lead, helping them to succeed. For Indiana Public Broadcasting, I'm Rebecca Thiel.
Doctors in Indiana are required to offer blood lead screening for all kids under 6 years old, but not the non-invasive bone scan. Specht says Purdue is working with the state and county health departments to make the test available to anyone who wants it. Purdue University launched a brand new program last year to bring together artificial intelligence research with practical, real-world applications. As WBAA's Ben Thorpe reports, leaders of the program believe it will be essential to place Indiana at the cutting edge of technological development.
Purdue's new Institute for Physical Artificial Intelligence hopes to bring together a variety of disciplines. Physical AI can be applied to everything from autonomous cars to farming and manufacturing equipment that could be capable of making decisions autonomously. Karen Plout is the executive vice president for research at Purdue. She says Purdue is unique in putting the emphasis on physical applications of artificial intelligence.
From my perspective, Indiana has to be looking at these technologies to drive investment for the state and make sure that the investments in the state make a difference.
Plout says things like autonomous trucking will be essential to growing the economy of the state. She worries about proposed laws that have looked to curtail autonomous vehicles, such as a bill this session requiring all vehicles to have a human passenger. I'm Ben Thorpe.
And for our final story today, a sudden cardiac arrest is when your heart stops pumping blood. It can happen to people who may look healthy, including children. Survival rates are pretty low, but those who make it are often faced with severe health consequences that can last a lifetime. Side Effects Public Media's Elizabeth Gabriel reports some families face challenges as they adjust to their new normal.
Lauren Abbott remembers her nearly 2-year-old son, Lucas, grabbing onto her as she patted his back to help him cough up food. She thought he was choking, but then he started turning blue and stopped breathing. Lucas was later diagnosed with a heart condition called VT. It causes the heart to beat faster and prevent the heart chambers from filling with blood, which led to his cardiac arrest.
He lost all speech. He couldn't even sit up anymore. It was like his body went back to being like a baby.
A sudden cardiac arrest can happen to children who seem healthy if they have an undiagnosed heart condition. If it happens, only 11% of kids survive it. Lucas is doing much better after 2.5 months in the hospital and years of ongoing therapy sessions. He relearned how to walk, talk, and feed himself. Lucas is now 8. He can do physical things like sparring during Taekwondo practice, but he has trouble with reading and math.
There are some times where he'll just read like a whole sentence and it's great. But then like he'll go to the next one and it's like he completely forgot everything.
Like many survivors, he sustained some brain damage. That's because the brain is deprived of oxygen during a cardiac arrest. It's now become difficult for Lucas to regulate his executive function. That's a part of the brain that controls things like focus, mood regulation, and learning. Research shows that 1/4 of kids who survive cardiac arrest may have these problems 1 year later. Pediatric neurologist Lisa McGuire has worked with Lucas for years. She's with Ascension St. Vincent Hospital.
So initially you may have some delayed milestones, but then with therapy, things look pretty good. And then you get into school and you really start to see problems with social interaction. You can see problems with learning. You see problems with focus and attention and behavior even.
McGuire has recommended Lucas play certain games to help with his response time and memory. She thinks he will continue to get better. But not all kids experience the same challenges after a cardiac arrest. Jacob Mikeworth went into sudden cardiac arrest during choir practice at his high school 3 days after his 17th birthday.
I kind of got really tired all of a sudden. I couldn't really get any words out. There was no breath, no nothing. And so I just kind of looked at my friend and fell.
Jacob was only in the hospital for about a week. He had a pacemaker implanted in his chest, which shocks him if his heart rate drops too low. Jacob's heart medication has made his eyes sensitive to light, which can cause migraines. He sometimes wears sunglasses indoors to help.
They do allow me to wear sunglasses, but I still do have some teachers that are like, oh, you shouldn't be having to wear those sunglasses, and try to push that, oh, you're fine, look at your age, you're so well.
It's been nearly 2 years. He's started to feel weak, have blurry vision, and joint pain. His mother, Amy, says they're unsure what it is.
We don't know what's causing it. We just know that he's having continued issues, and the cardiologist doesn't think that it has to do anything with the heart. So we're trying to figure it out.
But Amy says it could be up to 6 months until he's able to see a neurologist. These long wait times are actually pretty common. Here's neurologist Lisa McGuire again.
Getting things like neuropsych testing, which is what kind of quantifies issues after brain injury, whether it's from arrest or from concussion, you actually can't get it. I would say it's almost a crisis, to be honest.
Even if someone is able to schedule an appointment, McGuire says it could be a struggle to get neuropsych tests covered by insurance. Elizabeth Gabriel, Side Effects Public Media.
This reporting is supported by a grant from the USC Annenberg Center for Health Journalism's 2023 Data Fellowship. That's all for today's episode of WFYI News Now. Our podcast is produced by the following people who live in your community: Abriana Herron, Drew Daudelin, Kendall Antron, who composed the music for this podcast, and me, Darian Benson. Our news director is Sarah Neal-Estes. If you liked today's episode, remember to subscribe and share. And follow WFYI on Instagram, Facebook, and YouTube to check in on our newsroom throughout the day. Thanks for listening. We'll be back tomorrow.